Welcome to the Mobile Armored Podcast Show, the podcast that transforms into a nuclear submarine. My name is Adam Moore, alongside my co-host and best friend, PJ McNerney. How's it going today, PJ?
I'm angry today.
Are you?
This is the first episode of M.A.S.K. to actively make me angry on so many axes. It is a question of animation, of drawing, of writing, and of just basic waste of so many kind of potential good ideas that are in there. And we decided to focus on anything else.
I think if they had just aired 22 minutes of a commercial for M.A.S.K. just over and over again, it probably would have been better than this, which I don't quite know what to make of this. It is episode 19. It's called Ghost Bomb. Venom plots to destroy the Panama Canal with a captured nuclear submarine. Sounds super cool, but I think we need to begin with the title itself, Ghost Bomb.
I think there's two operative questions we should ask when we're watching this episode. Is there a ghost in it? Is there a bomb in it? Because if the answer to either of those is no, the title is terrible.
And I would argue the answer is no. But before we get into the episode itself, and this is spoiling just like the first scene or two, I have to talk to you and figure something out.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning we learn that we're on a beach. Eventually we learn it's Panama, but they're in a beach and palm trees. Looks really nice. They're on vacation. So the team, the vacationers are Matt, Scott, T-Bob, Dusty, and Gloria. And they're clearly there for fun because they're all dressed up in their swimwear, and Gloria's wearing little capri pants and a very 80s shirt. So are you telling me that they're all vacationing together? What role does Dusty play in Matt and Gloria's sordid love affair? What is going on here?
Okay, we know that Matt vacations with Bruce. He's done it 3 times. He's done it once with Alex, and now we've got Gloria and Dusty. So yeah. I was thinking to myself, all right, I get Gloria. We know they're in love. We know that they want to travel the world together. What are Dusty's skills? His skills are basically stunt car driver, boat operator, and pizza cook. What if Dusty's basically just operating as Matt and Gloria's personal chauffeur and chef? We want our personalized pan pizzas.
By the way, he hasn't proven to be a very good pizza chef, so...
This is the operative question, right? Because he ditches his pizza place all the time, and yet it's still functional. And it goes to that, is he like some Gordon Ramsay level of genius chef that people will put up with his bullshit? And it's like, oh, this is the best pizza. It doesn't matter if he's such a flake. I got to come back for more.
I will say there's some great world building at the end of this episode regarding Matt and Gloria. It's one of the moments I've been waiting for the whole series, so we'll dive into that. But on to ruining the episode itself. We do open, as mentioned, on a tropical beach, sand, palm trees, and of course, giant container ships in the background. Okay. Scott and T-Bob are, what do you call that? Like paraskiing? Like they're on water skis, but they have parachutes on.
I'm pretty sure it's paraskiing.
So they're paraskiing behind Gator, which, is this really the best use of a multi-million-dollar vehicle?
Again, we're at the precipice, folks, of madness. But yeah, like Matt just decides to use these vehicles for fun. There are several shots where the M.A.S.K. logo is clearly visible on Gator. In fact, there's many shots where I'm like, you could have avoided drawing that. It would have been fine, animators. And they put them in. And Matt and Dusty don't have masks on. And so if secrecy is of the utmost importance, then why the fuck are they basically riding around with an advertisement saying, we are M.A.S.K? And to show you what I mean, let me take my shirt off for a second.
Of course, this is an audio medium. PJ is taking his pants off, not necessarily just the shirt. That's fine. Nope. He's leaving his pants off. Okay, that's fine. Now you know the rest of the story. What do you got there on your T-shirt there, PJ?
I mean, the giant emblem of M.A.S.K, basically, on the shirt, the merchandising, like the whole logo. And this is basically what they could be doing right now to inform the world. They are the M.A.S.K paramilitary group. because of how many times that freaking logo shows up in all of these shots.
Yeah, it's all over the boat. The animators clearly had the toy and were told, animate it like that. And so they took it literally.
Oh, 100%.
And they put that mask sticker exactly where it's supposed to go on the toy.
I kind of wondered, wouldn't the Panamanian Coast Guard want to at least ask about the unregistered boat that has a strange gun-like protrusion coming out the front while operating in these waters of pulling these two people behind them?
Yeah, for sure. Scott and T-Bob let go to go, flying off on their parachute. And Matt says, look at them. 2 birds in the sun. But when we cut to Scott, he is terrified. The look on his face is of sheer terror. So I'm going to go ahead and call that within the first minute of the episode a Father of the Year award nominee.
100%. I was like, I guess in Panama, certain safety laws aren't applicable. Also, I've never done paraskiing myself. And so I don't know if you actually let them go or if there's, because it seems like fairly uncontrolled at that point in time. And so like the look on Scott's face clearly shows he doesn't know what he's doing at that point in time. And he's in immense amount of danger, very close to another person or creature, T-Bob, who is also parasailing at that same point in time.
Who could tangle up with the parachute.
Exactly.
And they all go plummeting. Yeah, exactly. Scott has this line, though, where he says, Gloria's sure missing a good time. And again, his obsession with Gloria, we've been tracking it now, I believe, for the 3rd episode in a row. This has taken a very dark Oedipal turn.
Yeah. Again, maybe he has no emotional framework in which to navigate his feelings of maternal versus like attraction, given that he might be close to puberty. There is a shot where Scott leans into the fact that he's going to die, and he goes from fear to acceptance with joy pretty quickly. So I'm not sure if this is also another thing we should be concerned with.
Yeah, well, hang in there, Scott, because it's about to get a little worse for you. But we do cut back to Matt, who spots a couple. So this blonde gal and her boyfriend, ? Whose boat, a pink Barbie Dreamhouse-esque looking boat, has been seemingly cut in half. And it's not sinking so much as it's regurgitating in the water. Is Jaws attacking that boat? I can't quite understand what's going on. And they're also very close to shore. It seems like, hey, just hop in the water and swim the 10 feet to shore.
Yeah, the stakes are amazingly low. The amount of thrashing is incredibly high. And they do 2 shots, one of the woman in the boat and one of the man. The one of the woman, it's like she's holding on to what appears to be the broken mast that is shaft-like between her legs. And then the other shot is where the man has his legs wrapped around the prow of the boat. And they're both basically gyrating back and forth. And I'm like, am I seeing things? Because I had to show my wife. I'm like, am I crazy? And she's like, no, that's weird. Weird at best.
Weird at best, confusing for sure. The animation is so bad in this episode that it very well could be exactly what you think it is. Well, look, Matt speeds off to save them, and he pulls out a bullhorn, and he yells to Scott, land on the beach. Now, mind you, again, this is Scott and T-Bob who are parachuting uncontrollably while Matt goes to save some blonde babe and her boyfriend. Another Father of the Year nominee, and also it's very much Matt's MO.
It's 100% his MO. Like, we're landing like squarely in Matt Track Your Dad territory right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to like take a step back and look at this from Scott's point of view for a moment. Let's say that he heard his dad, okay? His dad just told him to perform a very difficult maneuver without breaking his legs. Let's say he didn't hear his dad. He just saw his dad put a bullhorn to his lips and then boat off in a hurry without hearing what he said. And if Scott lands in the water at this point in time, the parachute weighs him down and most likely causes him to drown. If he lands on land, then he has to flare out at the right moment and make sure his ski tips are up to avoid getting the ski stuck in the sand and ripping his leg off, or just landing too hard and breaking his legs. So like he's now been asked to do a really dangerous maneuver while dad attends to basically this couple.
Yeah. I don't think it's out of the ordinary for Scott, really. Suddenly, they see a periscope. It's a submarine. And Matt says that's what cut the boat in half. So now we know the boat was cut in half. Why the boat was gyrating in the water after being cut in half. But nonetheless, Matt has to grab the steering wheel to make sure that Dusty doesn't hit the periscope.
Yeah, I was wondering, did he need to do that, or was that a power move? Or was he hugging Dusty? I really feel like the shot kind of makes it a little bit ambiguous.
No, I think it's a power move.
Okay.
And then Matt says, after seeing a little sort of lightning bolt sign on the side of the periscope, he says, "Wait a minute, that sub belongs to me. At least part of it." What doesn't Matt have?
He's a collect 'em all kind of guy.
So look, it turns out it's a nuclear submarine. Matt gave the company that built it a grant for computer research. So we can now confirm that Matt is an arms dealer, right?
100%. This is 100% he's an arms dealer. I had a question, which is, what government did he build that submarine for? So here's the deal. If it's for the U.S. government, you probably should call the U.S. government right now.
Yeah.
If not, is it for some other government? Because what independent private arm has a nuclear submarine?
Agreed.
Dusty's line is hilarious because of how it leads into the visuals. He's like, "Some gratitude, you gave them money and they tried to stampede us." And the way it's animated, Matt's petulance is on full display. His arms are crossed and he's so pissed off.
Yeah, I mean, he looks very much like Scott when Scott is told to go back to the hotel.
Yeah, I will say we get a little world building here, but maybe not in the way you want, is that when Matt gives a grant to somebody, he believes it's his. So the hospital in the jungle, the business park in Hong Kong, obviously all of his factories in England. Like, if he gives you money, you belong to him.
Matt and Dusty save the people, and then they head off to check out the submarine. And where is your son and his robot?
They're probably fine. I mean, I leave them alone in hotels in foreign countries all the time, or let them roam the streets of foreign countries all the time. I'm sure they landed that maneuver for the first time perfectly.
Back to the periscope. They are chasing after the periscope, and they use some kind of underwater X-ray camera on Gator to look inside the submarine with a really clear picture. No pixelation whatsoever. They are inside that submarine, which is going to come up again later on in a few scenes. Looking through the submarine, they discover there's no one on it. It's empty, devoid of people. Then who's steering it into the Panama Canal? And Matt says, "I think it's time to call Bolt Research," which is the company he gave the money to. But okay, wait. You've got a rogue nuclear submarine that just destroyed a yacht moving into the Panama Canal, one of the most strategic waterways in the world, and your first call is the company that built it?
Look, Adam, you can't have a paramilitary group if you call in the actual military, because they'll take over the situation. This has got to stay under Matt's control at this point in time.
Why not call the PNA, at least?
What are they going to do? They're going to call M.A.S.K. So Matt just figures, like, why not just handle the situation?
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
Matt does utter the line, "It's like a ghost ship." So I guess that justifies that part of the title?
Well, Matt is driving in Thunderhawk and talking to someone at Bolt Research. I thought he'd maybe just pull over the car at the very least. He doesn't need to be driving in Thunderhawk. But anyways, the guy at Bolt Research, who does not seem to be taking this issue very seriously at all, by the way, and is like your proverbial Uber computer nerd. He says, "I don't know how they did it, but 2 days ago, someone stole Brian the Brain, a supercomputer with limited thinking and reading abilities. Brian controls the sub, which replaces its captain and crew." Not only is Matt an arms dealer, Matt is also involved in creating an AI war machine. And also, is Brian the Brain the best the writers could come up with? Really?
Yeah, a lot of stuff in this. What is the degree of incompetence of these guys to not call in some authority when a nuclear submarine and your AI robot have gone, like, it's 2 days. Like, you didn't call anybody and just inform, like, oh yeah, that got stolen a couple days ago, and we didn't want to lose our job, so we decided to see if we'd just sit on it and maybe it'd come back to us. Hopefully,
we've been pretending that Brian the Brain is still in the back room. It's actually just a bunch of used pinball machine parts.
I talk to it every once in a while. Okay, Brian the Brain as a name. And I was going to get down on the writers on this for a second, but then I had to get honest with myself as an engineer. Okay, So is this a problem that the writers introduced, or actually are the writers doing a really good job at reflecting terrible names given by engineers for things? And reflecting on my own history, I'm going to side with the writers on this one for doing an accurate portrayal, because I can imagine some nerd like engineer be like, oh, Brian is an anagram for brain. The writers and animators really leaned into like every detail for the quintessential 80s nerd here. And because he's got a nasally voice, a bad haircut, glasses, a really stupid tie, a short sleeve dress shirt, and a stupid button for the project. It's basically Spaz from Meatballs.
That's so true.
And I will say that nerds are not a protected class, but this image is the closest we get to a Buddy Hawks award this episode.
I do think you're giving the writers too much credit. I don't believe all engineers are the way you have portrayed them. So you too, sir, receive a Buddy Hawks Award nomenation.
All right.
Ugly, man.
Ugly, really ugly.
I thought I knew you, man. What happened to you? Well, look, Matt's plan is to get on board and figure out who's controlling Brian.
So he was like, maybe I can find out who the new owners are. My thought was, Matt, do you understand how ownership works? Those people stole it. Now, notably, we still don't know it's Venom yet. We know it's Venom, but He doesn't know it's Venom yet.
Yeah, we always do. Because, in fact, we then cut to the next scene where we find Venom holed up in some hideout in the jungle. Sly, Cliff, Miles, and Vanessa are all just kind of chilling and doing nothing. And meanwhile, in the next room, we see Brian the Brain. And my very first question was, how are they getting the amount of power it would take to run an advanced AI supercomputer all the way out here in the jungle?
We know these masks run off an exotic energy, and so do their vehicles. So it could be that they're just jump-started it to jackhammer or something like that, where it's like, we have the technology, and I believe it given the feats they've pulled out in the past. So they probably have some portable exotic radiation thing. And since they're all sterile anyway, it doesn't matter.
You know what would have been really cool for the episode, though? It would have tied a lot of things together, especially with the really cool submarine and maybe getting us out of a jungle for the umpteenth time. Where is there a really high-powered nuclear reactor in this episode? The nuclear submarine.
Yeah.
Maybe put the supercomputer on the submarine, and then we have a really cool Hunt for Red October-esque episode going on where they've got to infiltrate this Venom-controlled supercomputer-controlled submarine. But instead, no, it's right into the jungle. Vanessa says to Miles, "It's nice to have a brain finally running things." And Brian the Brain says, "She's right. You couldn't have done it without me." Like, whoa! Yeah. What a burn, Brian. I like this guy. I like this AI. Also, I love how Brian has very quickly adapted to being a villain. What were you making, Matt?
Look, Matt was funding arms research. I don't know what else you do with a nuclear-powered submarine controlled by an AI bot. Like, this is the fear we have today. And apparently this AI bot is modeled after Miles Mayhem in terms of just nefariousness and burns. Because we get one from Miles right now. Cliff comes out. He's like, "Yeah, that thing sure is smart." And Miles, being a dick, turns around and just says, "Too bad I can't say the same about you." And the next shot is Cliff burying his face in whatever book he's reading, presumably to avoid people seeing his tears.
Well, Miles orders Sly to prepare the switchblade. And Sly yawns and kind of sullenly replies, "Okay." So Miles has clearly completely lost control of this bunch. No one gives a rip about him, and the respect level is absolutely zero.
I think this was a useful time to go to HR Corner.
Okay.
You and I have been or both are managers. And so if you had a manager with the degree of brutality and incompetence, whose projects failed as many times as Miles has, is it any wonder why his people are losing steam with him? And can you imagine the discussion between Miles and, let's say, Venom's a subsection of Cobra, like Cobra's HR rep? Hey, Miles, we've been getting some complaints from the staff regarding your treatment of them. Why don't we do some breathing exercises?
Meanwhile, Matt, Dusty, and Gloria are trying to figure out how to sneak on board the submarine. And again, I love how they're just all in their leisure wear. They got their bathing suits on. Dusty's got some nice little shorts. Interestingly enough, his shirt is tucked into his shorts with a belt. I would have expected Dusty to be a little more cash.
Matt wants to have the shirt tucked in because he wants his chauffeurs to be top-notch. And always prepped, okay? Did you notice in this shot, Matt's wearing sandals as well? This is like one of these like details about this episode where it's like very precise and yet inexplicable and unnecessary. It's like they're focusing in on the wrong things the entire time.
We then cut to Scott and T-Bob, who are apparently swimming in the Panama Canal.
So I looked this one up. Apparently, it is legal to swim in certain parts of the Panama Canal, most notably like the Galun Lake.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's totally illegal in the locks unless you have permission, which is where Scott and T-Bob seem to be.
Yep.
And then they surface up for Matt, who's standing above them. And I have to believe someone was like, make sure the sandals are in that shot. Because they once again have Matt standing over them, and those sandals are right there.
So Scott and T-Bob come to the surface, I would assume also covered in oil from the Panama Canal. Matt decides the best way to move forward in this mission is to send T-Bob into a torpedo tube to gain access to the submarine. So Matt is going to take his son's only friend and sole caretaker and send him into a nuclear submarine. And I think we have Father of the Year award nominee number 3.
This episode is very quickly becoming a Father of the Year episode where it's just like every move is the wrong move.
Yeah. Then on top of that, Matt says, take it easy, T-Bob. I'm just going to turn you into a TV camera so we can watch what you're doing down there. That is a heartless SOB.
I retranslated it as, take it easy, T-Bob. We're just going to send you in the reverse direction of a high explosive device used to destroy ships. It's like putting your finger down the barrel of a gun.
Also, they got T-Bob wrapped up in this gray rubber kind of scuba gear, which it doesn't really seem he needs because his head is exposed. Any comments on the outfit?
It was just so unnecessary. It was like, again, like this is like a really precise detail, and they spend a good chunk of time dressing him up.
Yeah.
And even having a shot of his face where he knows death is near. But it was like, look, I get it, show don't tell, but we can also elide a few things to get the episode some more time to do plot relevant things.
Or mask relevant things like vehicles transforming and shooting at each other, and masks firing mask powers, which are the two very basic foundation things that we as children come to see when we watch a Mask episode.
Exactly.
But not yet. Adding insult to grievous injury, they load T-Bob into a torpedo tube on Shark's hood. Was this really necessary? Also, Scott is laughing the entire time. He and his father are such sociopaths. It's insane. It's the one true way we know that Scott is Matt's kid.
It is such an indication, really, of how much Scott really is picking up. Maybe it's like he has really no cares in the world because like he's not worried about his robot like getting destroyed.
Right.
And also their plan, I just realized this in this moment, is to fire T-Bob from one torpedo tube into another torpedo tube. That is actually the plan.
So it's like, why give him flippers or anything if you're just going to fire him into a torpedo tube?
What if you miss by just an inch? like by an inch? Like it doesn't have to be very much before you're smashed.
And it would all be televised because he's using him as a TV camera. So Scott would see in very close detail the destruction of his one and only friend. And he would probably laugh about it because he's a sick, sick boy.
Is he a sick boy or has he just been taught that way? I love how Matt and Dusty are still in their leisure wear when they load him in. Gloria's dressed. She's ready to rumble in her M.A.S.K uniform. But the other guy's like, you know what? It's hot out.
Speaking of Gloria, she takes Shark underwater, which I think is one of the first times we've actually seen Shark transform.
We've only seen it basically in vehicle mode before, as far as I can remember.
So she takes Shark underwater and she fires T-Bob into the submarine's torpedo tube. She's quite the crack shot, so she does, in fact, get him right into the torpedo tube. Meanwhile, Matt, Dusty, and Scott are watching along from inside T-Hawk.
They have this exchange in there.
Nothing like live action on TV. This will be the next best thing to being there.
T-Bob, you're a little out of focus.
What did you expect? The 6 o'clock news?
Well, you're sort of the anchor man for this show.
Oh,
Hang on, T-Bob. It's time to be a big shot.
just call me Undersea Bob.
You're firing a device against a nuclear submarine. Does no one understand the severity of what they're about to do?
Also, the runner of T-Bob calling himself like different names and Scott calling him different names based on the situations in the episode. It is the flattest, most humorless runner that's happened in a M.A.S.K episode. Well, T-Bob gets inside and they discover a massive box of plastic explosive. And Scott says it looks like a giant wad of dried up bubble gum. And I'm sorry, writers, but that's not what C4 looks like. Matt screams, "Get out quick, T-Bob." And I was actually surprised that Matt cares that much.
It's good that he cares. He's also surprisingly ignorant, being an arms dealer of C4. So let's sidestep to Science Corner for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So like the material that you get out of C4, the material is a solid with dirty white to light brown color, a putty-like texture, which is similar to modeling clay, which lets you mold it, and that's kind of like the shape charges and stuff like that. And the thing about C4 is that it's actually pretty stable. It can only really be detonated either by a shockwave from a detonator or a blasting cap. So unless T-Bob is like intentionally trying to set it off, it's actually fine. I wouldn't want to be around it, but at the same time, it's not like TNT, which can bleed basically, and then you touch it and it can explode.
Yep.
It is meant to be stable. So Matt doesn't know what's going on here.
T-Bob tries to get out of the tube, but he gets stuck in it. How he gets stuck in the tube that he just got into is a giant question of mine. But Gloria pops on her mask and she swims out to save him. She uses Aura in reverse, which is a Deus Ex helmet in this episode, and pulls him out. But he goes spinning and sends Gloria flying back into Shark. And her mask cables, you know how Gloria has those cables on her mask, like for kind of breathing, it seems? They get damaged and tangled up with one of the fins on Shark. It honestly seems as though she could escape quite easily, but okay. And then T-Bob swims to her and shakes her. Why doesn't he try to save her?
T-Bob's incompetence is on full display here. And when the danger's there, Matt yells out, "Gloria!" And Scott's like, "T-Bob!" So I think we're all thinking like this is meant to be a high-stakes moment, yet has been set up so terribly.
Exactly. But we got Gloria on the doorstep of death, T-Bob unable to do anything. What's going to happen, PJ?
I don't know. Gloria's probably dead.
Well, let's find out after these messages.
We've got him in sight. Hold on, M.A.S.K will be right back. Now watch what M.A.S.K does.
And we're back. Gloria was about to drown to death. T-Bob, completely inept in his ability to save her. And Scott turns to Matt and says, "Dad, what are you going to do?" And Matt turns to Dusty and says, "Time for a double dip, Dusty." And I swear I'm not laughing. I am not laughing.
I just can't, man. Look, I gave the writers a bone before with Brian the Brain, but now I'm going to tell them to go fuck themselves, okay? Because what are you guys doing? Stop making like these cheap jokes about T-Bob or these weird like innuendos and actually write the episode.
It's so terribly written. Again, vehicles transforming and M.A.S.K powers being used. It's what we're here for. We're 10-year-old kids, and we get this dumpster fire of an episode. Anyways, underwater, T-Bob is pushing Shark to the surface. So he can do that, but he can't free Gloria from a thin, tapered underwater fin? What?
Again, it's one of those like inexplicable things where it's like, all right, we're going to artificially put this stuff together. Like if T-Bob's able to control a shark at that moment in time, he could move the fin away. Like he could do so many different things.
He could just push him to the surface.
Yeah, super easy. And then the way they animate him pushing, I did wonder, like, he has this really, like, mean, determined look on his face. Like, I was wondering if this is his Roy Batty moment.
Yeah, no, he's gone dark. This is dark T-Bob. They finally get Gloria to shore, and Matt asks her, by the way, first thing he says upon getting her back to the surface alive in one piece, what are you trying to do, Gloria? Break up the team? And then this is where things get really, really, really interesting from a world building and relationship standpoint.
What are you trying to do, Gloria? Break up the team?
No way. But for a moment there, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life married to Shark.
That's for sure.
This is without a doubt the most hilariously awkward scene in the entire series so far. And what's the deal with the marriage comment? Is she trying to give Matt a hint about what she wants? Are they married? What is going on here?
There is something so awkward. I think it even impacts the characters because I think Dusty is laughing because he sees how incredibly awkward this conversation is, and he does not know what to do at all. Like he knows they've all been witnessing the game that Gloria and Matt have been playing. He doesn't know if they're married either. And so, like, he's like, yes, danger, marriage, people I know and hang out with. I need to figure out some way of escaping this conversation.
One of whom is his boss, by the way.
Yeah.
And there's so many different lines you could write there. Because it also doesn't make sense. Like, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life married to Shark. Not so much married as in carried to the bottom of the Panama Canal and drowned to death. If that's what you consider marriage to be, Gloria, no wonder you're not married. Meanwhile, Scott is trying to get T-Bob out of the water. And Scott tells him, to dry off, you just have to stand behind Thunderhawk's exhaust for a few minutes. You mean the jet engines? Also, how is Scott supposed to get a heavy robot out of the water by himself? Matt and Dusty are over helping with Gloria, and Scott's the one trying to pull T-Bob out of the water.
First off, I think in terms of Matt not caring, that's pretty minor for this episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and I, for one, think it's a great idea for a robot slick with the oil runoff from container ships passing through the Panama Canal to dry itself from the fiery exhaust of a vehicle that should not fly and would require even more power in order to fly.
But it's worth a try. That could be the more you know at the end of the episode. Scott, what are you trying to do? Never dry off behind a jet engine.
Especially a robot that's been covered in oil.
You're right, Dad. When it comes to drying off, jet engines are not for me. Well, we cut to Switchblade flying high above, and Miles says it's time for phase 2. And he has the submarine fire a torpedo, which hits T-Bob, sending him flying into the air, and it explodes. And he crash lands on the ground head first. And somehow he survives this? Here we have a Sly Rax Ragdoll Award nominee.
Yeah.
Can I continue to unpack this moment, though? Because it gets even dumber. Matt, holding a piece of the torpedo, says, "Relax, T-Bob. It's only a rubber buoy with a message pouch attached to it. Mayhem must have launched it from the sub." Then why did it explode? It's a rubber torpedo with a message on it, but it exploded when it hit T-Bob? What in the world is going on here?
This was clearly like one of the writers went to the showrunner and said, hey, I don't know if I can make this work. And the showrunner's once again like, look, just fuck it, okay? It's a rubber buoy. It explodes. Get on with the episode, okay?
Yeah.
We have to move it along here because your writing's been a little bit ponderous this entire time.
A little ponderous.
The other bit is that, and because I had to listen to this a couple times, so the UK pronunciation of buoy sounds more like boy.
Yeah.
So the correct American pronunciation of it is buoy.
Yeah.
But Matt says it like boy. So like when I first heard it, it was like, relax, T-Bob. It's only a rubber buoy with a message pouch attached to it. And I was like, whoa. I know he didn't just say that. Let me go back and look at this.
Also, taking it to the next beat of the scene, the message says that Venom wants control of the Panama Canal, or else they'll blow up the sub with a missile from the Switchblade, creating nuclear contamination. Who exactly was this message intended for? Because they did an awful job sending it. What kind of terrorist sends a message via a rubber buoy torpedo fired at a young boy's robot?
This was a question I had for Miles in this moment of like, yeah, you're right. Who are you trying to send this message to? Especially if it has a sunset deadline. Like, at least when he was in Japan, it was like, those are my demands. I demand that they be met. He was actually talking to the prime minister. We don't know if he told them the demands or not, but at least he was having direct communication and not trusting that the message would make it to some authority. Because, like, if I found an exploded piece of rubber on the beach that says, I'm going to blow up a nuclear submarine, I'm probably thinking this is a hoax. The way the message is delivered just speaks to how little he's actually, like, investing into it. Because he's got a nuclear submarine, and his plan is to threaten multiple countries' shipping economies by detonating a dirty bomb. And you're going to fire a missile to detonate it underwater. And missiles use a reaction mass and fire, which don't typically work well underwater. It might not hit a part of the ship with the C4. It might actually sink the ship and then just scuttle it. And you're remote controlling it. So wouldn't a better plan be to use a remote control detonator? Yeah. All of it feels like, no, this is a hoax.
Oh, totally.
If you sidestep all of this stuff, if you succeed, what then? You've detonated a dirty bomb in one of the most internationally important traffic ways in the world. Every country in the world would issue a kill order on you. The U.S., the Soviet Union, China, everybody in the Middle East, you're done.
All in all, awful messaging, awful plan, 0 points for Venom. And I feel dumber for having talked about it. Matt turns to Scott and T-Bob because things have gotten dangerous, and he says, Scott, you and T-Bob go back to the hotel. Indeed. How many times has Matt told Scott that in this series so far? And this kid has not been home, based on this episodes we've been seeing, this kid hasn't been home in a while. So he's literally living out of hotel rooms. Nice ones, I'm sure, because Matt's wealthy. But he's been living out of hotel rooms for quite some time now.
It's like 8 episodes in, I feel like we've been in foreign travel.
Venom, by the way, has set a deadline of sunset to give them control of the Panama Canal.
And they wrote that on that rubber buoy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That exploded, and luckily the message was not destroyed in the explosion.
Thank God it wasn't like Venom sets a deadline of... it doesn't say. Well, can't be anything quick.
We are now very late into this episode, by the way, when Matt calls the computer and asks for the M.A.S.K agents best suited for this mission. But, like, doesn't he already have a pretty solid team in place? Is there anyone better suited to a mission on the water than Dusty and Gator and Gloria and Shark? But, okay.
Maybe you could make an argument for one more flight vehicle.
Yeah, Condor would be a great call.
Yeah, but probably the last thing you'd want is something that's completely land-based as a vehicle that can neither fly nor float.
Such as Hondo McLean, vehicle code name Firecracker, usage in the water 0. No escape scene for Hondo, just a call. And of course, Dusty and Gloria are assigned to the team as well. Least amount of work the M.A.S.K computer ever had to do. I want to check the flight time, please, from Denver to the Panama Canal. Let's be generous and say that everything in the episode that's happened so far let's say they were parasailing at 8 a.m. because they're early risers. And let's be super generous and say it's now 10:30 in the morning. That gives them 2.5 hours for all the stuff that we just heard to unfold. All right, it's 10:30 in the morning. Sunset, it's the summertime, it's near the equator. Let's call it 9 p.m.
Sure.
Okay, so it's less than 12 hours. How long is it going to take for Hondo to get from Denver to the Panama Canal?
So the flight time, I looked this up, is about 6 hours long. And if it's 9 p.m., that means he needs to be in the air before 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, because we're in the summer, to make it for sunset. But you then have to take into account time zone changes. So that means it has to be for Mountain Daylight Savings Time, So as long as he can finish up with his librarian quick enough, then it's plausible.
In time for sunset. So his
Right.
use to the M.A.S.K team is going to be limited just because there's so little time left by the time he gets there. But the team is assembled, and off we go. Matt is talking to the nerdy guy from Bolt Research. Matt needs the password so he can talk directly to Brian the Brain, and it turns out the password is Captain Hook, because Brian is a captain, is what the nerdy guy says. Terrible password in any decade.
Yeah, and also you're given the password to a villain. Like, Brian, you're going to be like Captain Hook, the one with that tries to kill Peter Pan repeatedly.
And I wonder why he turned bad.
It's so weird.
Matt is actually in Thunderhawk with Dusty, and they're talking about this. And there's a shot of Dusty. Every time I look at it, I can't stop laughing. What the heck happened to Dusty? Like, I will be posting the photo on Instagram, and you can all be the judge. But something happened to Dusty that I can't explain.
I look at this shot, I'm just like, did you guys like forget how to draw Dusty or were drunk when you were doing this? Because like, wow, like you just didn't bother looking at like your examples at all, did you?
Matt is hacking into Brian the Brain manually. And they do this with a kind of a long montage of Matt trying to figure out himself. He's typing in numbers on the keyboard and even like wipes sweat off his brow at one point. Can you give me some info on how difficult this must be given it's a 6-number access code?
So let's go to Math Corner for a second. So if you have a 6-digit base 10 number, that means from all zeros to all nines, you have 1 million possibilities. Okay. So if Matt could work basically like a 1 6-digit combo per second, it would take him something around like close to 12 days. And that assumes he's peeing in his pants and has enough speed to stay awake. And a computer, even the 80s, could probably do this in a few seconds or max minutes, basically. This is, again, very precise and unnecessary use of animation.
I mean, they've got the M.A.S.K computer, which is the most advanced computer that exists in this show.
Right.
It probably already knows what Matt's trying to do and probably has the code waiting to give it to him. But they do finally gain access to Brian the Brain because that's Matt for you. And Brian says to Matt, "I know your name. You gave the grant to create me." And this has a very War Games Joshua thing going on here, right?
It really does. And I think we can point out the episodes very much like War Games, except without the character development, the stakes, the story, or any of the philosophical issues that makes War Games so good. Basically, take War Games, subtract out everything that makes it good, and you've got Brian the Brain and this episode.
Exactly. You nailed it. Matt gets into a conversation with Brian, trying to convince Brian to reveal where he is and that evil people are in control of him. Brian says that no one controls him and that Matt is trying to get him to kill himself. And then he basically hangs up, essentially.
Yeah. The exchange is pretty fun because Matt's like, "You have to sink the submarine." And Brian's like, "That is not logical. You wish me to destroy myself."
Also, Brian is in the back room of some shanty in the jungle. Brian's not on the submarine. So Brian could sink the submarine a dozen times over, and Brian the Brain would be just fine.
So much is weird. And it doesn't even take very much logic to take it apart. We're not, doing significant hoops here.
No, it's ridiculous. We cut to Hondo and Gloria and Firecracker. And Hondo reports that they have triangulated Brian's location.
This may have been one of my most irate moments of watching this. So Hondo, who we've asserted and proven many times to be the most capable agent, has been flown 6 hours to push a button. That is what they have employed Hondo to do.
Miles spots M.A.S.K. and he calls Vanessa. And he says, "What are you loafers doing?" What a way to open up calling your team.
Again, HR's calling.
Vanessa responds, "Rax is catching up on his beauty sleep and Dagger's improving his mind. What's up?" And Miles' response is, "Not much." But Miles does go on. He says, "Not much. M.A.S.K is going to pay you a visit."
I kind of thought it was nice knowing that these folks had an interior life beyond just riding in these vehicles. Although I was kind of questioning, like, Vanessa never says what she's up to. She's just kind of commenting the others.
She was just standing there. All episode, she's just been standing there with her arms crossed.
Yeah, just angry.
We cut to our Mask Venom battle, the only one in the episode. We're in the jungle. Jackhammer, Piranha, and Manta, they all open fire on Thunderhawk. And this, I think, is the first time we've seen Manta engage in a full-on battle.
Yeah.
Gator takes out Manta. Again, Manta is flying. Gator is a boat.
Yes.
Gator takes it out with a depth charge that shoots water into the sky so high that it floods Manta, and Manta crashes into the beach. Thunderhawk destroys Jackhammer. Good work. Piranha in sub mode goes after Gator. Gator does like a real quick turn, and it sends Piranha crashing into a rock. Piranha explodes. So there's our Slyrax Ragdoll Award nominee. But then also, Sly goes running away like Yosemite Sam with a fire on his butt. Like, his behind is actually singed and smoke is coming out of it.
Yes.
He's kind of yelping as he runs away.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre beat. Also, if you witness the way Piranha hits the rock, it hits the rock, goes straight up, comes straight back down, explodes.
Explodes.
And Slyrax is okay, except for a fire on his ass. By this point in the episode, like, I am starting to check out. It's just like, I can't deal with any of the stakes here because of just what a mess.
It really is. It's almost like, why bother continuing in this episode? But there's great stuff ahead, people, so stay tuned with us, all right? So Thunderhawk drops a rope down and pulls Gator through the jungle. But, like, Gator has a Jeep mode, and while we've never seen it transform back into Jeep mode, it should be relatively easy for it to just kind of hop back into the Jeep and drive through the jungle. But instead, no, Matt decides to drag Gator in boat mode through the jungle. Switchblade then shoots the rope, disconnecting Thunderhawk and Gator. So what was the point of that, I guess?
I couldn't tell if the writers were somehow, like, confusing, like, the Panama beaches and areas like the bayou.
I actually feel, as bad as the animation was in this episode, I actually feel bad for the animators who had to animate this crap. So the boat slides to a stop in front of Venom's hideout, and Dusty's got a clear shot through the window at Brian the Brain, and so he fires the ice beam at him, freezing him, and then for no reason whatsoever, Vanessa comes running out of the hideout with her butt frozen solid. What?
So the only thing I could even think of from a writing standpoint is, like, Sly's got a hot butt and Vanessa's got a cold butt. Don't you see? It's symmetric now. Again, this is one of those details that's precise and completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Also, we should point out that unless we're to believe that Brian the Brain is actually not pure electronics, that maybe it's like some monkey brain that's been like that there's a biological component to it, then freezing it actually probably wouldn't do anything. It's not like it's going to stop the circuits. Again, if it's a biological brain that's somehow inside of that tube, then yeah, you've just killed Brian the Brain.
Right.
By freezing it over.
Yeah, I mean, but again, like, there's no reason to save the submarine. Who cares about the submarine? It's not all that interesting. Just put Brian, like we said, in the submarine, and you kill two birds with one stone. And if we're also super attached to Brian, do something where it's like, no, that's okay. Brian's all right. We've uploaded him into Thunderhawk or whatever, and you could save Brian the Brain. So this battle is bonkers. It's pointless. It's useless. And it ends like a Looney Tunes cartoon, which wasn't funny when we were 10 and is anger-inducing now.
Yes. I found myself very angry at this point in time.
And if you and I weren't getting paid a ton of money to do this podcast, I would have turned it off and just said, I'm done. I quit. But, we get paid a lot for this job. So, and we do it for you, dear listener. We do it for you. So Brian is frozen to death. The submarine surfaces. It looks like everything is okay. So why was Hondo needed again? But anyways, in a last-ditch effort, Miles fires a rocket at the submarine, which is actually a good follow-up. Like, he's a man of his word. He's like, all right, well, you made me do it. I'm going to blow up the submarine now that it's on the surface. And to stop the rocket, rather than use a weapon on a M.A.S.K vehicle or one of the masks, which once again, one mask has been used in the episode. In the show called M.A.S.K, a mask has been used once. What Gloria does is she fires a net from Shark, which catches the rocket And then Matt catches it with this rope from Thunderhawk, which we've never seen before, and kind of carries the rocket out to sea and then drops it safely in the water. This has to be the most convoluted way to stop a rocket that I've ever seen.
I don't know if this is like more evidence that Matt and Gloria basically are just bored and need to keep like outdoing themselves. Because again, we saw like way back when Gloria lased off Miles's belt, she's a crack shot with Shark's lasers. She could have hit it easily. Also, in the Rotex, Hondo took out the same missile with Blaster.
Right.
So like, honestly, like it would have been a great justification to have Hondo there if he fired Blaster to take out the missile. It would have been like, oh, that's an awesome reason for him to be here. But it's not. It's the Matt and Gloria show to do something utterly ridiculous at this point in time, which made me more angry.
M.A.S.K. pulls the submarine out of the canal, and end of episode.
I was thinking, thank God Miles had only one rocket to fire, and exactly one rocket.
Especially since his plan was all about firing a missile to blow up the submarine, if necessary. We cut to the more you know moment. Scott is riding T-Bob in scooter mode, and he gets a flat tire. And by the way, T-Bob completely flips out. He's like, emergency, emergency. And he's like, we're stranded in the middle of a city. But okay. But there's an emergency phone box nearby, but there's no phone book. How is Scott going to be able to call his dad? It's okay, because Scott memorized his phone number and his address. So there's your lesson. Always know your phone number and address, which is legitimately good to know if you're like a 6-year-old. But also, T-Bob has a radio in him, right?
Yeah. Let's dissect this one a little bit. So once again, we have a M.A.S.K. lesson that's totally divorced from the episode. And let's remember, these emergency public phones are found on freeways. So Scott is riding T-Bob on a freeway. He's riding an underpowered gas scooter on a public freeway. He's certainly too young to have a license. And like, should there be a different lesson that you shouldn't let your kid ride on freeways?
Without a helmet.
Without a helmet, just like with cars whizzing by. Like, I don't know if there's lane splitting wherever he's riding, but it's not a good scene. And regarding the radio, I'm willing to believe that the radio was in fact removed by Scott in order to get that picture for Gloria back in England.
I'm going to debate you on this topic.
Okay.
Because earlier in the episode, there was clearly a radio in T-Bob because he spoke to Matt and the gang from inside the submarine.
Okay, I will continue the debate because there's actually a detail in there because he says your goggles have a radio in it.
Excellent point. So I can see the point. This time, PJ.
I do think, though, that like, we're debating something that's idiotic because like a radio doesn't take that much space.
Look, it's okay to debate something idiotic because that is the entire foundation of this podcast.
Touche, sir. Touche. I grant you that point, sir.
Let's take a look at our awards. Buddy Hawks Award. What do you got?
I don't have one. I mean, again, I had that passing comment about the nerd. I think, once again, it's a great thing that we're not awarding a Buddy Hawks Award for racism in an episode of a cartoon show. They're in Panama, but we actually don't have much interaction with any natives. We have that tourist couple. That's it. And so, great.
I'm going to add a little misogyny subcategory to the award here. And I'm going to go ahead and give it to T-Bob, who says about Gloria, women would rather get a tan than get wet. So,
yeah.
T-Bob, you've done it again.
T-Bob, let's be really honest. Like, the writers are doubling down and tripling down, like, episode after episode for racism and misogyny. It's pretty remarkable. And again, like, as a parent now, it's like, whoa, this isn't okay.
No, it's not. Speaking of parenting, Father of the Year award.
God, I'm going with the whole episode because I don't know if I recall any moment where Matt is showing genuine concern, and every moment is basically something neglectful.
Yeah, I'd say the whole entire episode. I agree with that very much. And some Sly Rax Ragdoll awards to give out.
Yeah. There's a part of me that really wants to give it to T-Bob.
For being hit by a torpedo?
Yes, for being hit by a torpedo and somehow surviving. It's close, though, because Slyrax kind of earns his own award as well by escaping from an exploding piranha.
Yeah, I'm giving it to Sly only because T-Bob's a robot and clearly a pretty robust one. It's like, yeah, okay. Sly is in Piranha and it blows up. Like,
Yeah.
it's a fireball, and he escapes with just Yosemite Sam fire on his behind. All right, so there's our awards, and that is the end of episode 19, PJ.
I do have what I consider one of the saddest statistics, though, that I think is worthwhile to call out.
Okay.
All right. Hondo McClane is actually a total of 21 episodes in the series.
In the entire series.
In the entire series. And actually, that also means 21 episodes in all of season 1, because he's not in season 2 at all. And this episode marks appearance 11.
Wow.
So we're actually halfway through. Like, this is the exact midpoint of his run on this series.
And this was an utterly useless Hondo McClane. They wasted the midpoint of his appearance in the series.
And again, like, easily could have been made up for if it just used Blaster.
Yep.
Just use Blaster to nail that thing and you're dead.
Well, thanks for that sobering fact. So much to look forward to, listener. Hopefully episode 20 will be better. It is called Cold Fever. During a trip to Alaska, Bruce Sato falls ill from a terrible virus, and M.A.S.K finds that venom has the only cure. Sounds cool. Will it be?
I guess we're going to find out.
But until then, this podcast has to transform and head back to HQ. I am Adam Moore.
And I am PJ McNerney.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Mobile Armored Podcast Show is written, produced, and edited by Adam Moore and PJ McNerney.